Hey everyone, this is the DC Multiverse Justice League by Mattel. After seeing the Mcfarlane version of these characters, I thought I'd take out this collection of mine and take a look again. And really, at the same price point, the Mcfarlane figures are really way better than these Mattel figures. But at the very least, these figures over here are not as bad as the DC Multiverse Suicide Squad. Let's start off with Aquaman. The Aquaman figure is quite decent, I guess, and between all these figures, this Aquaman definitely have the best head sculpt in my opinion. The head sculpt is really the same as in the movies. For the body, his body is textured and it looks kind of okay, but for the paintwork, it's not really that shiny. The trident is definitely very grey and plastic. I think the design is quite, it's just not as great compared to the Mcfarlane over here. Definitely better for the Mcfarlane weapon. So like all the Mattel Multiverse figures, the articulation is really a letdown. For this one, he doesn't even have an ab crunch. Only a waist swivel and the normal limited movements of each of the joints. The leg can only go up this much and bend this much. That's it. No ankle pivot, just hinge up and down. So yeah, the articulation is really not great. The head can turn left and right, definitely can't go up or down much because of that amount of hair. The shoulder pad is kind of rubbery, so it doesn't restrict the movement of the arms. So yeah, the Aquaman, the head sculpt is the best, but the figure is decent at best. Next, Cyborg. Again, the figure is kind of decent, but definitely not that great, especially at the shoulder part over here, because it kind of looks bulky, like it's bulging out, kind of oversized, and that it doesn't have the same sculpt as the rest of the figure. You can see this kind of like striation and sculpt on all parts of the hands, all parts of the legs, body, and then over here is just bare. If you were to look at the Multiverse version is definitely better. The sculpt is really great. The head sculpt is kind of decent, quite movie accurate, I guess. Yeah, for the articulation, missing the ab crunch again. But then again, the Multiverse ab crunch is useless. If you've seen my review on the Suicide Squad, all the ab crunch is almost non-existent. Waist swivel, the leg goes up a bit higher. Single hinge knee joint, there is a calf swivel. Feet hinge up and down, no ankle pivot, and the hand goes up this much with bicep swivel and single hinge elbow joint. And he has a forearm swivel as well. No swivel on the wrist though, because it's on the forearm. And yeah, there is an alternate hand, a weapon hand over here, and this can only be used on the right hand. There. Yeah, I'm not sure actually is this way or the other way around, but yeah, it doesn't matter, I guess. And it's actually kind of funny why they don't make it such that he can also use it on his left hand. This left hand really can't be pulled out. I've tried. I think if I were to pull it out, I might break the joint unless I heat it up. So it's not meant for the left hand. The weapon is only for the right hand. Oh yeah, here's the back of the figure. It's really kind of grey in color. I guess there is a slight shine to it. So yeah, that's about it. It would have been great if it is more shiny and silvery. But yeah, that really wouldn't happen, would it? Next, Batman. Just like the Suicide Squad that I reviewed, I feel like the Batman is one of the better figures of the wave. The sculpt on it is really great, and he really does have textured sculpture on most of the surface of the figure. And he has a cloth cape, which is good because you know the plastic cape really hinders the movement of the figure. And it's great that it's kind of leathery at the back, although the inside is kind of velvet-ish. So yeah, this figure is actually not bad. The head can't really look up and down, just like the other Mattel Batman figures. Ab crunch, but yeah, that's about the only movement that it does. Waist swivel, arms goes up this high, bicep swivel, single hinge elbow joint, swivel on the fist. They have the DC Universe like hip joint, goes up this much, single hinge knee joint, and hinge joint on the feet as well. No ankle pivot, just like the rest of the figures. Yeah, they have this embossed on most of the figure at the back. But I guess for Batman and Superman, it's kind of covered. You can see this Mcfarlane version definitely have better sculpt, and the crotch area also looks better than this kind of rectangularish crotch on the Mattel version. And they have the masked and unmasked head. Next up, Superman. This figure is kind of a retool of the movie Masters Superman, and you can see the size difference between these two figures. Batman is bigger than Superman, but I think in the movies they are about the same size, or at the very least they are about the same height. So this figure is kind of slightly on the smaller scale, I feel, but yeah, still not so bad. But the only downside about this figure is that the head sculpt is really nothing like Henry Cavill at all. The movie Masters version actually did it better. And you can see that the figure is very similar, but there are some differences. For example, the belt area is different. But I think for most of the rest of the part, it's really the same. Just a slight difference in paintwork as well, of course. And the cape. Somehow for Superman, giving this cape is not really that nice to me. Kind of too shiny, I feel. So the plastic cape is actually nicer for the case of Superman, but that's just my preference. So again, this Superman is missing the ab crunch. The hand only goes up this much. Single hinge elbow joint, wrist swivel, waist swivel, leg goes up this much to the side, to the front only like this. Single hinge knee joint, calf swivel, and hinge up and down. And this Superman can't look up that much. He'll be flying and only be able to look down. Next, Wonder Woman. I feel that the Wonder Woman actually looks very decent. Most of these figures actually all look quite decent in their vanilla pose. So yeah, you can't really do much dynamic pose with them, but in vanilla pose, they actually look decent. And especially for this Wonder Woman as well. The colours on her is actually quite great. There's a bit of shine to it, and very vibrant. The head sculpt is also decent, except for this side over here, where the cheek kind of gets stretched into the hair. Yeah, so this part on the right cheek of the figure doesn't really look that great. But I guess if you turn it slightly this side, looks kind of better. There, you can see the cheek kind of goes into the hair. But other than that, this figure looks good. The lasso goes on this brown strap, so does the sword. Here's the back of the figure. And articulation wise, of course the head can't look up and down at all. And a bit difficult to make her turn left and right as well, because of the hair. The hand goes up this much. There is a bicep swivel and single hinge elbow joint, which is very limited in the angle of movement. Just that. Wrist swivel, waist swivel, leg goes up this much, single hinge knee joint, thigh swivel, and feet hinge up and down. And not much of a split as well. But like I mentioned, this figure looks quite decent in vanilla pose. And finally, the Flash. The Flash figure is kind of decent as well. There is sculpt on it throughout the figure. And this sculpted texture around the body is also quite decent. At the inner thigh over here, on the forearm, a bit on the shoulders. But of course, when you compare with the Mcfarlane does look good. And in terms of the sculpture, better. And in terms of the articulation, definitely way better. So the articulation of this figure is again not that great. There is an ab crunch of minimal movement. The head can't really look up that much. Down, and of course left and right. The hand goes up this much. Bicep swivel. Arms go up this much only. Single hinge elbow. And wrist swivel. Waist swivel. Thigh swivel. Goes up this much. Double hinge knee joint actually, but still doesn't give as much articulation. And ankle hinge joint. They give a double hinge knee joint, but didn't give more movement. So I don't know what's the point of giving a double hinge knee joint. So yeah, you can check out my review of this against the other version of this that comes in a 2-pack. And here's the Steppenwolf Collect and Connect figure. You can see that this is definitely massive compared to the rest of the figure. And the sculpt and texture of the figure is really great. There is black wash on the shiny blue paintwork. It's really awesome actually. But of course, like the rest of the figure, the articulation is terrible. But as a figure itself, just standing, is really quite great. And this head that I got is from the other Aquaman figure with the removable helmet. I have the one from this wave itself, which is the one without the removable helmet, and it's exactly the same. I really don't understand what Mattel is thinking doing this to the collectors, giving a normal head and then later on releasing the almost same exact head but removable helmet. Why can't they just give this in the first place? Here's the back of the figure. And the weapon. Quite decent I guess in terms of sculpture, but in terms of the color, it's really kind of plastic grey. For the articulation of the figure, ab crunch only to the back. The head only looks up this much, looks down, left and right of course. Hands goes up this much sideways. This part over here is kind of rubbery, so it doesn't restrict the movement of the arms. Bicep swivel, single hinge elbow joint, wrist swivel, waist swivel. The leg goes up this much, and single hinge knee joint and ankle hinge joint. There is a bicep swivel beneath this part over here. Oh yeah, and this is kind of soft and rubbery as well. So there you have it. This wave is slightly better than the Suicide Squad, and also that the Connect and Collect figure is definitely better because of its massive size and detail of the figure. The articulation of all these figures actually really sucks. They look kind of okay in the vanilla pose, but I feel it's really difficult to put them in some dynamic poses. The Mcfarlane figures definitely have way better articulation, although they are kind of a bit bigger in size as well. Thanks for watching. Do check out my other videos in my channel, and I'll see you in the next one.